Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Rhiannon and today I'm going to be talking about the most disappointing books that I read in 2023. Now, I wouldn't say that this list is actually too bad. I have 7 books I want to talk about today, and out of the 76 books that I read, again, I don't feel like that is a bad number necessarily. It's obviously not great. I would prefer to only read books that I love, but unfortunately that isn't going to be the case. So I've had a look back through my reading year. I've compiled a list of the most disappointing books, and those are the ones that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. Just a quick disclaimer before we dive in: if any of these books are some of your favourites or the books that you really enjoyed, I am extremely glad for you. Unfortunately, these just didn't work for me. Whether that be at the time I was reading them, I wasn't in the right frame of mind, the story just didn't connect to me, or I wasn't all that interested in the plot or the dynamics. We are all readers, we all have different tastes, which is so magical, and the fact that these books are on this disappointing list doesn't accurately reflect how you may possibly feel about them yourselves. But saying all that, I feel like it's time to dive in. Starting off with Poirot Investigates by Agatha Christie. You guys know I love my Agatha Christie books. I am slowly making my way through all of her books at the minute. I have read the Miss Marple murder mysteries and now I'm working my way through Poirot, and I believe that this book was my 3rd book of the year possibly, and unfortunately, as you can tell by the fact that it's on this list, it was a very big disappointment for me. I did have an inkling going into this that it wasn't going to be my favourite of Agatha Christie because it is a compilation of short stories, and honestly it's been that long now since I read it that I can't even remember what type of mysteries were featured in this book. I couldn't tell you anything about it, which just shows how forgettable it is. It was nothing memorable. I feel like with these short stories you don't get the depth and complexity that you get in every other Agatha Christie book, which is a little bit unfair to judge against. I am aware of that, but I just felt like we were going from one place to the next so quickly. The stories were very disjointed. I wasn't getting everything that I normally get from an Agatha Christie book, and I just really did not have a good time with this one. Had they been standalone murder mystery books that I could really sink my teeth into, then they might have been more enjoyable, but unfortunately this book as a collection of short stories really wasn't it. I gave it 2 stars, and it was a letdown for me just because of how much I normally love the murder mysteries featuring Hercule Poirot. Next up we have a book that I have unhauled, and that is The Appeal by Janice Hallett. Now, if you've been keeping up with my videos and if you've seen my murder mystery vlog, you will know why this book is on this list. If not, I will have it linked up above and down below for you guys, so please do check that out. I read some amazing books, but I also read some not so amazing books, and spoiler alert, I didn't enjoy The Appeal by Janice Hallett. This was such a slog to get through, you guys. It is such a highly spoken about murder mystery book. I got it when it first came out. The Waterstones bookseller recommended it to me and I picked it up based on his recommendation because it sounds exactly like my type of thing. It is a murder mystery book set in a small town. We have a large cast of characters who all seem to have a motive to commit the murder that has occurred in this town. We have dark secrets, we have mixed media aspects throughout this book as well, and we have 2 detectives that come in from the outside community into this small community to try and prove that the woman who has been convicted of the crime is actually innocent. That just ticks all of my boxes. I was so excited to dive into this book, but as you can tell, it was a massive letdown for me. I genuinely do not understand the hype that this book has. It took about 200 pages for the murder to actually happen, so I feel like we were building up and building up and building up to this big thing, and then it was so anticlimactic. I wasn't actually sure who had been murdered for a while. There is a lot of things going on in the background in this community that I just felt like really weren't that important, but we kept going back to it. We kept going to different characters. We then switched up to going and focusing on new characters, and I just felt like this book was a jumble of too many different things. It was way too long. The mystery wasn't really all that complex, and I just felt like the author could have done so much more with it in a shorter amount of pages. It would have definitely been able to shave about 200 pages off, and I feel like that would have made the book a lot better. The only thing that I really enjoyed in this book was the mixed media aspect. However, a lot of that aspect of the book is comprised of emails, and I believe that this book is set in 2018, and there is no way that you can convince me that people would be emailing each other in 2018 instead of just texting or phoning or WhatsApping or anything like that. They were all emails, and yeah, that it just wasn't believable to me. I wish I'd liked it because I had such high hopes for it, as I mentioned. A lot of you guys seem to enjoy it, but for me personally, it is one of the worst murder mystery books out there. It put me in, I think, about a 2-month slump after reading this book, and it has definitely put me off reading Janice Hallett books for a while. I do have the Twyford Code on my shelves, which I'm not sure whether I will be picking up. A lot of you have said that you think I will gel more with that one, so that's giving me some sort of hope, but this author and this book in particular has pretty much scarred me, and so unfortunately that is why this book is on this list. I feel like this is my worst book of the year, just because of how long it took me to read it, how bored I was. I was so close to DNFing it, but I didn't because I was filming a reading vlog for it, and I can honestly say that I just didn't find anything enjoyable in this book. And for a 500+ page book, that is not great. So unfortunately, The Appeal by Janice Hallett is on this list. I really didn't like it, and as I mentioned, I have already unhauled it, and I'm so glad to have seen it go. Next up, we have Heart of the Sun Warrior by Su Lin Tan, which is the sequel to Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have the highest hopes for this book after purchasing it. I did go ahead and buy the Fairy Loot exclusive edition of this because it matches the first book beautifully, but I did only give the first book 3 stars, which is still a good rating, but I just didn't love it as much as I thought I would. I really enjoyed the mythology behind it, but there were characters in here that were pretty insufferable. I could deal for a little while, and then it just went a bit OTT. The relationships between certain characters as well spoiled that book for me, and picking up this book, I thought that a lot of the things that we tackled in the first book would have been resolved. However, out of the blue, another character pops in and just changes the dynamics again completely. I thought it was pretty unbelievable. I didn't get why it was happening, and our main character throughout the first like 200 pages of this is adamant that she wants nothing to do with this character. She tells them multiple times to leave her alone, that she doesn't like them, that she has bad feelings towards them, and she will never be able to trust them again, which are all completely valid. However, she then does like a complete 180 and is like she is madly in love with him, and that just lost me, guys. You know I need a compelling romance in my fantasy book. That didn't give me it. It was so cliche. It was very reminiscent of a YA book, and yeah, unfortunately I just could not get into this book and see past that, which is such a shame because I loved seeing the different kingdoms that we went to in this book. Of course, I can't say too much without spoiling it, but we did get to see different aspects of this world and see the mythology expand even further, and that is such a beautiful aspect to this series, and I feel like is a massive selling point. However, the characters really do spoil it. We do get an introduction to a new character in here who has been mentioned throughout, but they pop up and I loved that character in particular and their relationship with another character. Sorry, I'm being so vague. And then yeah, we have this set of characters that just didn't work for me. I just thought the main character was so selfish. She really didn't think about anyone else throughout the perils of this book. She was always focused on herself and what would work for her in the long term, and yeah, she just messed with a lot of people's feelings. She put everyone in danger at some points as well by not looking further than herself, and unfortunately, even though this is such a beautiful book and I really do love it, the story itself just wasn't for me, and the characters really did spoil my enjoyment of this book. Next up, we have a very controversial book on this list, and I'm actually kind of scared to show you guys what it is, but that one is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. I had heard the most amazing things about this book. So many people who I follow raved about it, said it was beautiful and it was the best book ever. However, when I picked it up, I did enjoy it. I will say that this is more on the list because it just didn't meet my expectations. I thought I would enjoy it a lot more, and unfortunately it did fall a bit flat for me, but the writing in this is stunning. The atmosphere is fantastic. I would definitely say that if that is your type of book, then you would love this one, and I see why so many people do love this one because it is just such a different book, but it has so many beautiful and powerful aspects to it that it just makes you feel so many different emotions. And of course the setting of this is also something that just draws you in. For those of you who don't know, in this book we follow Dracula's first wife, who is Constanta. We see her meet Dracula, fall in love with him, be turned into a vampire, and then we see how their relationship goes from there, and how even though she feels some sort of loyalty to him for saving her, the life that she has been bound to isn't all that she imagined, and so she is essentially taking it into her own hands, and this is told through her diary entries. The writing style in this is so interesting. I really did like the fact that it was told in diary entries. This book read so quickly because of that as well, but I just found myself wanting so much more from this book. I feel like I wanted more of a connection between the characters, and I feel like this is an instance where the diary entries didn't quite do it for me, because it's very one-sided, and I would have liked to have seen how the different characters interact through different characters' perspectives, but we don't get that. We are stuck with the one, so it is very one-sided, and it is a little bit unfair, I want to say, to some of our characters because of that. I didn't really feel like we got to know these characters very well, just because, again, it's a very short book, and this spans across hundreds of years because, of course, they are immortal, and with this being so focused on the characters, and this group of characters has just been put together out of different circumstances, and then they have been promised this amazing life, and what they've gotten isn't really that, and so we see them sink deeper into depression. We see them really struggle to come to terms with the fact that they are basically trapped under Dracula's rule. There is a lot of gaslighting in here, there's a lot of bullying and abuse. There is actually a list of trigger warnings at the front of this book. Yeah, there's loads. So it contains depictions of emotional, verbal, physical and intimate partner abuse, gaslighting, war, famine and plague, blood and gore, consensual sexual content, sadomasochism, self-harm, body horror, violence and murder, alcohol use, depression and mania, and it also contains brief references to sexual assault, drug use and drowning. So it's definitely a deep, heavy-hitting book, but again, I just feel like we didn't really get to the nitty-gritty of everything. A lot of things were just kind of brushed over very quickly. The resolution happened and I just felt like it was a little bit unbelievable, and as much as I loved the setting and the atmosphere, I just wanted more, and that might be what I prefer as a reader. As I've mentioned, loads of people love this book. It's such a popular book and I've seen it on a lot of people's favourite lists, but I have found that I personally do love a longer book where I can actually connect to my characters a lot more. I can get a lot more of their history, their background and their motivations, and in this it just didn't quite do it for me. I really did love it for what it was, but when I went into it I was expecting something a little bit different, and unfortunately for me that meant that it was a disappointing book, which is why it is on this list. Next up we have Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shea Earnshaw. I picked this up because of my love for the Nightmare Before Christmas film. This is a sequel to that film. It is of course in book form, and we follow Sally as she comes to terms with the fact that she is now Pumpkin Queen and all of the different expectations that come with that. As I said previously, I definitely want to know the nitty-gritty details in books, and so this was just really surface level, very disappointing for me, and I just wanted a little bit more. The latest book that I have read and I'm putting on this list is The Kingdom of Sweets by Erica Johansson. I had such high hopes for this book, you guys. It is a beautiful book and it is a Nutcracker retelling, which sounded right up my street. I read A Midnight in Everwood last year by M.A. Kuznia, which again is a Nutcracker retelling, and I really did enjoy that one, and so when I saw that this book was coming out I pre-ordered it and I was very highly anticipating it. However, I got around to reading it and I honestly don't know what was going on in this book. I really loved the first 100 pages or so. We are following twins who were born on Christmas Eve, I believe, or Christmas Day. I think it was Christmas Eve, see, I can't even remember. And on the day of their christening, a sorcerer called Drosselmeyer comes there and essentially tells everyone that he is going to be their godfather. He then proceeds to curse the twins and he marks them as light and dark. So we have Clara, who is the light twin, and then we have Natasha, who is our dark twin. From this point onwards, Clara is thrust into the spotlight whilst Natasha is always put to the side, and she just grows more and more resentful as the days go on. That is until she is transported to the Kingdom of Sweets by a Nutcracker and she is offered her chance at revenge. Now that's all I'm going to say. Again, the premise sounds like my type of thing, but this just did not work for me. The first 100 pages I enjoyed, and then it just went downhill. We didn't really get any explanation as to what was going on, why certain characters were the way they were, why we were able to then go to the Kingdom of Sweets, or what was happening whilst they were there, because it was genuinely just like 1 minute we're here, 1 minute we're back there, 1 minute we're here, 1 minute we're back there, and I was just losing it, guys. There was no coherent structure to this, and there was just no real world building or development. So I was finding myself being very confused. A lot of characters as well went from being one way to another. I feel like a lot of them had really drastic personality switches, and it just threw me a bit. There's also stolen identity in here, which I felt like was just very intrusive, and I really didn't like it. And even though this is set at Christmas and it's a Nutcracker retelling, I really didn't get the Christmassy vibes. It's definitely a darker book, which I appreciated, but all in all I just felt like it really fell flat for me. I can't tell you anything that actually happened in this book, and the way it ended as well was so disappointing. There's this kind of big build up and then it amounts to nothing, and then we're like 40 years in the future with one of the characters reminiscing about their lives and wondering where everyone is, and then yeah, it just kind of leaves off there. And I just felt like you could have done so much more with this book. It could have taken such drastic turns. It could have played into the darkness of the Sugar Plum Fairy so much more, and yeah, it just left me a bit angry actually, because I'd invested so much time into it and I'd been anticipating it for such a long time, that to finally read it and feel so disappointed by it was just such a shame. And I will be unhauling this one, so if anyone wants a lovely hardcover copy of this book, please do let me know. But yeah, this was not for me unfortunately, which I'm so sad about. I did push through though and finish it off, but yeah, this is definitely a disappointing read for me and has me debating whether I actually want to pick up another book by Erica Johansson, because I do own The Queen of the Tealing by her, which is a fantasy novel, and I've been putting off for a while, and now after reading this I'm even more unsure as to whether I should read it. So if you think that that would be my type of thing, please do leave it down below. But yeah, Kingdom of Sweets was not it for me, and I will be unhauling it very soon. And then I am just going to mention one other book. I don't have it on me because it is one that I unhauled pretty soon after receiving it, but that one is Poster Girl by Victoria Roth, and basically all I know about this one is that it's a sci-fi. I did try and read it. I got about 100 pages in, but I just couldn't do it, guys. This is my only DNF of the year. I really try not to DNF, but I feel like that's going to change moving forward because it felt so freeing when I DNF'd this. I was trying to push myself through it. I just wasn't getting anywhere with it. I really wasn't enjoying it, and as soon as I made the decision to DNF it, I just felt so much better. That one also isn't one that I bought myself. I received it in a subscription box, so it isn't one that I would have necessarily gone out and bought. I just didn't skip the box. It landed here. I thought I should give it a go, and unfortunately it just didn't work for me, so I got rid of it. I'm sure someone else has read it and enjoyed it by now, but yeah, for me personally it really wasn't it. I can't tell you too much about it either, but I will just read you a little snippet from the synopsis. It just says, with razor sharp prose, Poster Girl is a haunting dystopian mystery that explores the expanding role of surveillance on society, an inescapable reality that we welcome all too easily. That sounded really interesting, but yeah, the different factions that we had, the separation between the kind of wealthy people and who were in prison. I feel like they were rebels who were in prison because they tried to stand up for themselves a few years back, and then out of the blue people come to our main character with this deal saying that if she found the daughter, I want to say, of a wealthy aristocratic family, then she could go free. And it was just very bizarre, and I don't quite know where it would have gone. I honestly didn't care enough to find out, as is obvious with the fact that I DNF'd it, but I actually feel like that one could be a favourite of so many different people's. However, I'm not really a sci-fi reader anyway, and one of the main reasons I decided to give it a go was because Veronica Roth is the author of the Divergent series, which I haven't read but I have been debating, but now I feel like I can just leave it there. I don't need to pick it up. I can always turn to the films if I want to. However, I watched the first two of those and I wasn't too impressed, so maybe not. But I did want to mention this book because it is one that I did DNF, so obviously it's a little bit disappointing, but I went into it knowing that it wasn't necessarily one that I would have chosen anyway. I don't think I would ever have gone out and bought it and read it had it not been gifted to me in a subscription box. So that is what happened with Poster Girl. Out of the books that I still own, these are the most disappointing ones that I read throughout 2023. As I said at the start of this video, it's not too bad. I feel like I know my reading taste pretty well by now. I try not to buy books that I feel like I'm not going to 100% enjoy, and so out of almost 80 books, having this stack isn't too bad for me. A Dowry of Blood was actually 3 stars. I feel like that's the highest rated from this stack. It's just that it was disappointing. Same goes for Heart of the Sun Warrior. I enjoyed it for what it was, but there were so many different elements in the book that just didn't work for me, that overall it came to a lower rating. And then the other books I can happily say goodbye to because they were just not for me and they were won't be books that I'll be picking up again. So there we have it. Those are my most disappointing books of 2023. Please do let me know your thoughts on these books if you've read them down below. I love chatting to you guys and hearing different opinions about the books that I've read. And if you have any strong opinions about certain books that you've read last year as well, please go ahead and leave them down below. If you have made it this far through into the video and would like to let me know that you're still here, please go ahead and leave me a bin emoji down in the comments. For you guys in the US or anywhere else that doesn't know what a bin is, it is a trash can. I feel like that's a little bit harsh for this video, but these are the worst books, or the most disappointing books at least, that I read last year, and I feel like a lot of them are being unhauled, so I feel like a bin emoji or a trash can emoji is perfect, especially as we're going into the new year and I want to do a little bit of an unhaul. So if you don't have anything in particular that you would like to say but you would like to let me know that you're still here, please go ahead and comment that now. As well as that, please don't forget to click the like button if you like this video and the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content from me. But that is it from me today, guys. Thank you once again for watching. It truly does mean the world to me, and I will see you soon in my next video. Goodbye!